Hey everybody, it's me, John, again. Welcome to another episode of Itchy Mysteries. Today we're going to talk about a film that had me shaking my head at the screen, maybe more than any other film I've seen this year. It is called Kids for Cash, and you can check this out currently on Netflix here in the US. I did see it is also available for rent on other platforms, so if you don't have Netflix or if you are out of the US and it's not available, you might want to check Amazon. I think YouTube might have it rentable as well, but just take a look out there and try to find Kids for Cash. I think it's a very important documentary that many of you are going to gain a lot of insight out of. You know, very frequently I will have a commenter that brings up the question of conspiracy theories, or not even the question, just commenters that plainly believe that they don't happen. I really wish those commenters would take a look at a film like this, Kids for Cash. And I was originally kind of put off by the title of this film. I didn't know about this. It's based on the name of a scandal that happened in Pennsylvania in the early 2000s. And I didn't really know about that scandal, so I didn't know it by that moniker. I thought Kids for Cash was going to be about human trafficking. I guess in a way you could kind of say it is. It's a really, really dark story. Let me give you just a brief overview of it. This is the synopsis from IMDB.com. Kids for Cash is a riveting look behind the notorious judicial scandal that rocked the nation. Beyond the millions paid and high-stakes corruption, Kids for Cash exposes a shocking American secret. In the wake of the shootings at Columbine, a small town celebrates a charismatic judge who is hell-bent on keeping kids in line, until one parent dares to question the motives behind his brand of justice. This real-life thriller reveals the untold stories of the masterminds at the center of the scandal and the chilling aftermath of lives destroyed in the process, a stunning emotional roller coaster. Now, let me just say that bio, I think, overstates the film a little bit for me. In particular, the part about there being one parent who dares to question the motives. I did not get that from my viewing of the film. The film shows many parents talking about how strange these court proceedings were, where their children were being taken in. They were asked to sign a waiver to their own legal counsel, and then these kids would appear in front of this judge, and a minute or two later, their kids were being hauled off in chains. What is really disturbing about this, and I think I could give this to you without spilling too much of the story if you haven't seen this for yourself, but essentially these judges were getting some type of monetary kickback from the people that had built the juvenile detention center that these kids were being sent to. So that's where this whole moniker Kids for Cash comes up. Now, the one judge that was kind of central in terms of sending kids to there, I believe his name is Judge Chiavella, if I remember correctly. He denies that he was getting paid to send kids to that location. What I think he doesn't understand is that if he was a part owner or even getting kickbacks for those buildings, he had a vested interest in overstocking those buildings so that the builder would have to build more and then he would send more kids there. So it's really strange that you would have this judge that looks at things so simply when it comes to the cases that come into his courtroom, like a student that made fun of a vice principal, and then he winds up sending them to years of being held in this juvenile detention center. But when it comes to something as simple as you can't take money benefiting from the activities that you're doing in the courtroom, he just goes completely foggy and doesn't understand it. The film, in terms of reviewing it, there's not a whole lot to look at visually. This is very much a documentary piece, almost done in a news story type of vein. It's a lot of interview footage. You're going to see a lot of talking heads. And I have a little bit of a problem with how the narrative comes out just in terms of the storytelling of the film. I think it's very important to watch. I still think you should watch through it. It does seem long because the narrative kind of does this thing where it'll start telling the story of what the judges are doing, then it flips to a lot of the families that are affected by the judges, then it goes back, gives you another step or two on what the judges were doing, then it goes back to a lot of narrative from the families. It's not very cohesive in how it's laying out this information or this story, but by the time you get to the end of it, you have a very clear understanding of what happened. So it feels like, let's just say it feels like it's meandering around the story instead of giving you a very direct path of here's what you need to understand, and I'm building on the previous dialogue, and now you're coming to this new conclusion. You do eventually get there, but you just take some diversions as you get more input from the families. And it's almost like, I get it, it's almost like this story has two distinct sides. You know, you could look at the legality of what's going on with the crimes that these judges are conducting, and then you can look at how the families are affected. It's almost like they could have been two separate films, but they've been woven together, and I don't know that they've been stitched together in the best way. But it is shocking. Quite honestly, it's appalling, and it leads back to a very simple understanding that I have come to about conspiracies. If there is something to be gained in terms of money or power by two people collaborating against the interests of other people, there is a very good chance that that can happen. And this movie is a perfect example of it. I also refer to the television show Survivor a lot, particularly when people question the authenticity of conspiracy theories. Just watch any season of Survivor. If there are 3 people in camp and 2 of them can move forward by doing not bad things, but by cutting the third person out, they will do that. It is almost human nature if there is some prize to be won. And in this case, there was a lot of money to be gained by how these judges were conducting their business. And I can't say it enough. It's appalling. It's shocking. It will certainly shake your foundation about our judicial system a bit. However, there is some aftermath that it goes through where you might feel like justice has been ultimately served in this case, but I don't know that it has. I mean, there's so many kids that were affected by this, and they literally had years of their lives taken away. And even worse than that, I don't want to spoil it for you if you haven't seen the film, but there are some very bad things that happen to these kids as a result of them being put through this process. And what I found most shocking about it for me personally is some of the things the kids had been taken in for. That kind of stuff happened when I was in school all the time. As a matter of fact, I might have done a thing or two like that in school. It just really shocks me to think that those times where I was able to learn lessons about right and wrong and what I should do and what I shouldn't do, these kids really didn't learn that lesson by being handled in this way and being pulled out of the environment and treated like they were true criminals when maybe they were good kids that were slipping up. Maybe they were good kids that were stretching their boundaries and they pushed a little too far, and instead of being nudged back, they were literally removed from their lives and put in a detention center. It's a bit of a heartbreaking story, but it is super important. And I do think that you brain scratchers out there in particular would gain something from watching this. And you will certainly, if you're anything like me, you're going to find yourself shaking your head at the screen several times, possibly getting emotional because of what these kids are being put through. And your jaw might drop open once or twice during the viewing of this. So, Kids for Cash, I'm really happy I finally sat down to watch it, and I suggest you do too. I would rate this, I'll give it a 7.5 out of 10. Like I said, the narrative's a little weird for me. There's not a lot to be said about it visually. It's a bunch of interviews, not a lot of great footage outside of that. Doesn't have much of an artistic touch. And even in terms of it being a kind of news show type narrative, it doesn't exactly do that quite great either because of that meandering thing it does between flip-flopping between the facts of the story and people's interviews. But ultimately, like I said, when you get to the end, you will have a good understanding of what went on here, and it's a shame. It's just a shame. There's no two ways about it. Anyway, please check it out and let me know what you think in the comments below, and keep those suggestions coming. This one was suggested from you guys. I really, really appreciate that. Thank you so much for joining me on today's Itchy Mysteries. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you on the next show on the Lord and Arts channel.